about one more point, which is rumination. Do you guys know that word rumination? It means dwelling on, brooding on the same thoughts over and over and over. When we are anxious, when we are depressed, our negative thoughts take possession of us. We can't let go of them. We just chew on them. It's toxic. It's psychologically toxic. Why? Because it amplifies the intensity of our negative moods, and it revs up the brain's stress response circuits, which keeps our depression going. So what do? Well, in our program, we've got 3 steps for helping people stop ruminating. The first step is just to notice when you're doing it. Learn how to get really good catching yourself in real time. Every time you catch yourself, decide you're going to shift your focus. You need to redirect your attention elsewhere. What are the kinds of things that work? Really quickly, social interaction, and by the way, shared activity, not conversation. That sounds counterintuitive. When we are ruminating and we talk to somebody, we very often drag them into our rumination with us. What has been discovered by clinical research, and certainly in our clinical practice, is shared activity with somebody else is much better most of the time at breaking rumination than conversation. Unless you are really disciplined and your friend is disciplined so that when you talk, you are not talking about anything that you're going to ruminate about. That's very hard to do, by the way. Engaging solo activity, that sounds a little bit prurient. It's not meant to. Engaging, that means all of us have things that we need to be able to do when we're by ourselves. We don't have the luxury of social interaction that will capture our attention. For some of us, it's a video. For some of us, it's being online. For some of us, it's anybody play a musical instrument? I find that I play piano wonderfully anti-ruminative. If I'm brooding over something and I start playing something on keyboard, it just takes me right out of it. I wish we had time to brainstorm a little bit. I'd love to hear from more of you about your best anti-ruminative activities. Writing out your thoughts. Have you ever noticed when you write something down, it's a lot easier to walk away from it? You get it down on paper, you've got things that are on your mind, you can't stop thinking, you write them down. It's like, oh, it's down on paper, I don't have to keep thinking about it. I don't have to burden my memory with keeping that thought afloat. Changing the scenery, by the way. Most of us who ruminate have pet places that trigger our rumination. Again, like Pavlov's dog, we've been conditioned to ruminate in certain spots. Believe it or not, when you're ruminating, if you change the scenery to something novel, especially getting out in nature, there's something about nature that's been recently discovered to be anti-ruminative. And our brains crave the visual stimulation and relaxation that we get from looking at natural sceneries. Oh, and here's the most shocking thing I'm going to tell you tonight. I think I'm going to end on this shocking note. I love this. This is worth the price of admission. Oh, wait, you didn't pay. Still, worth the price of admission, right, for this. When we're in nature, when we're outside, we are inhaling dust-borne, soil-borne bacteria called Mycobacterium vaccae that are found all over the northern hemisphere and most of the southern hemisphere that go into our lungs. These are bacteria. Have you heard of probiotic bacteria? These are probiotic bacteria. We get them in our lungs. They cross into our bloodstream. They start interfacing with our immune system and telling our immune system to release factors that travel into our brain and start changing neurochemistry, increasing growth of neurons in circuits that use dopamine and that rev up our pleasure centers. Being outside in nature is bizarrely antidepressant.